T-I-E-R, Victor. Just put an R after E. Client means we or user, right? No, Jignesha, please don't get confused. This client is your machine. Client is a machine, server is a machine. All these are just different machines. So Jignesha, if today you are asked to connect to the H2K Infosys website, so you are going to connect to the H2K Infosys website. So your machine is a client machine and you're connecting to the H2K Infosys web server. Don't get confused with this client and that client. These two are entirely two different things. Information passed to and fro from the database to the client, which involves the server, database, and the client system. Information passed to and fro from the database to the client. Yeah, it is not just from the database to the client, it is from the client to the server, server to the database, then from the database to the server, and then it goes to the client. So don't go into that detail. It is just basically that how do you access the information that is there in the database. You send a request from the client and then you go ahead and there is a server who will process this request for you. So the process will, how will the server process the request? Because without checking in the database, how can you know if this username is correct, the password is correct or not? Because it is stored in the database. So the server will process the request by checking in the database and then the server will send a response to the client. Right, Shri? Right. Now let's go to the next topic, environment. What do you mean by an environment? What is an environment? What do we mean by the word environment? Operating system, platform. Right, so here we are talking about the computer environment. No. Alright, a place where we work with certain rules. Okay. You are talking about an environment. I'm talking about Anandita, computer environment. Okay, so computer environment means the hardware, the software, configuration of a computer. Yes, correct, Diane. Right? So, we are talking about the hardware and the software configuration of a computer. That is known as the environment. So, whatever hardware is there on your computer, whatever software is there on your computer, that is known as the computer environment. So now let's take some examples. Let's say there are different operating systems. There is Windows 7, Windows 10, Windows 8. Then you have different browsers. You have Firefox. You have IE. All these are different Firefox, or it can be testing tools also. Tomorrow when you're going to install tools like QTP, Quality Center, so that will also be an environment. Now there might be some hardware accessories that are connected to your computer. So what can be those hardware accessories that are, yes, printer, scanner, absolutely correct. So printer, scanner, so all these can be your hardware connected to your computer. So basically this is known as your environment. Yes, correct, mouse, keyboard. So all this will come in your environment. Now is it clear to everybody? that might go ahead and ask you, okay, so can you please go ahead and tell me what in computer environment you've worked on? So then you can say, I have used this operating system, I have used this browser, I have used these testing tools, and this was the hardware that was connected to the system. So all this is basically your hardware. Now coming to a very important word, build. I mean, if you understand the term build. Here made the computer, no Jyoti. Work product. Okay, before I ask you build, how many of you who work to your needs? No, Shri. How many of you have installed some games on your computer? Or any software on your computer? Yes, absolutely correct, Dayan. It's an installation file .exe. So how many of you have installed games on your computer? I'm sure a lot of you have done it. So first, what you need to download, an exe file. What is an exe file? Exe file is an executable file. What do you mean by an executable file? I'll explain that, but this is the extension of that file. That is an executable file. What do you mean by an extension? How many of you worked in MS Word? So how does the file get stored as doc or doc? If you are working with PPT, it is .ppt or .ppx, depending. So let's just say .ppt. Then if you have a notepad, then this is done as .txt. So is this clear to everybody? Word, doc, ppt. Is this clear to everybody? Okay, great. So the way these things have an extension, when it is an executable file, so executable file means you will double click on it and the installation will start. So you keep saying next, then you say next, and then you accept the terms and conditions, whatever it says, and then it says the installation is complete. Right? So now build, what exactly is build? So build is an installation file, or basically it's a compiled program. What do you mean by compiled? Compiled code. Compiled code means with the compiled code means the program without any errors. So this is basically, it is packaged in a single file called the .exe. So when the developer is doing the coding, he will have at least 100 code files. Now, when you compile all these files together, so that means compiling means the code files. So obviously these code files are written in some or the other language. So what can be the language? It can be Java, it can be VB script, it can be any language. So whenever you are doing the coding, there are 100 coding files. But me as a tester, do they give me all these 100 coding files? No. They will package them into a single file, and that is known as exe. So once I get the exe, I am going to test on this build. Is this clear to everybody? Is this clear to everybody? Can you repeat the coding? Yes, I can repeat the coding. Let me repeat the whole thing once again for you to understand, because this is something that you have to understand completely. Let me just go ahead and delete this. So here, what I'm trying to tell you is that there is something known as a build. Now, like I told you, for Word, for PPT, for Notepad, there can be an extension. The extension for a build is .exe. That means it's an executable. Now, when I say it's an executable, what does that mean? It means so here it means, so see, what I'm trying to say, the coding part is that there are different developers that are there. So there are different developers there. So the developers, what are they doing? What are the developers doing, guys? What are the developers doing? Yes, they are developing the software or they are writing the code. So when they are writing the code in one website, there can be so many functionalities. So do you think they'll give you 100 files? Jignesha, they don't develop the requirements. They write the code or they develop the software based on the requirements, Jignesha. Does that make sense to you? Good. Keep typing so that I can keep correcting you, so that from day one you are saying the right words and you are preparing for the interview. So it means that developers are writing the code. So when they write the code, what is the output? The output is the code files or source code. This is the output. But now, when the developers are coding, do you think there is going to be one file? No, there are going to be so many files. So how do I give it to a tester? To give it to a tester, what you are going to do is you are going to package all these files, all this code, package it in a single file, which is known as the .exe or the executor. The developers are writing the code. They have different, just imagine if I have to give you a book to read. So instead of giving you a book to read, I give you 100 papers. So how difficult it is to manage those papers, and you cannot go ahead and do it. So similarly, in the IT world, nobody will give you one single code file. They will give you an executable or a build. So the developers would have written the code and then they would have converted it into a single file known as the exe. So when you download the different kinds of games, obviously there is some software that is written behind those games. There is some code written behind that game. But do you get to know that code? No, because it comes to you as a single packaged file known as exe. Is it clear now?
Yes.
Everybody type, is it clear now? I can see only 4 to 5 yes. Okay, if it is clear, then let's go to the next topic. So the next topic for the day is types of environment. Now, what do I mean by types of environment? We discussed that the type of environment is your hardware and the software of the computer. That is what we discussed previously. Now, what are the different types of environment and why do I need it? I can have just one environment. So the different types of environments are development environment, testing environment, pre-production environment, production environment.
Last time I was
So the development environment, testing environment, pre-production environment, and production environment. These are the different kinds of environments that are available. Now, why do I need these environments? What are these environments? How do they work? Why are they separate? Let's try to understand this first by taking an example. So when I take an example, I am going to go ahead and draw a small diagram here. Let's say I'm creating a software to test. Now, let's say we are creating a software which is designed for basically an ATM machine. Right, so I'm creating a software which I'm going to install on an ATM machine. So what do you think should I do? So what is the first thing that will happen? If I'm creating a software for an ATM machine, what is the first step that I need to do for creating that software? What is the first step that I need to do for creating that software?
ATM machine.
Code the software as per requirements.
Develop the software, code the software as per the requirements, gather the requirements. Absolutely correct. So first we are going to gather the requirements and then we are going to code the software as per the requirements. Obviously there will be design phase also. So as we understand, I'm creating a software. So the first step is going to be your requirement gathering. Absolutely correct. And then you're going to design and then you're going to do the coding as per the requirements. So where do you think the coding will happen? Where do you think the coding will happen?
Developer will do.
Developer environment. Absolutely correct. So where will the coding happen? The coding is going to happen in the developer's environment. So let's say this is one box here. And I want to go ahead and call this as, I'm saying the software is developed here using the development tools. So obviously the developers are going to do the coding and the software is developed here using the development tools. So what environment is this? Development environment. Right? This is the first step. Now after the development is done, what should be the second step? After the development is done, what should be the second step?
Testing.
Testing. Absolutely correct. So the second step that you are going to do is going to be the testing.
తర్వాత ప్రీ ప్రొడక్షన్ నెక్స్ట్ మనం టెస్ట్ చేస్తాం అంతే.
So let's say
మనం చేసేది టెస్టింగ్ ఎన్వైరన్మెంట్.
now the software is developed.
ఎన్వైరన్మెంట్ ఏంటంటే మనం ఆ తర్వాత
Now I need to go ahead and test it. Let's create another box here.
నేను అనుకుంటున్నాను మనం బిఏకి చెప్తాడు ఆ తర్వాత టెస్ట్ లీడ్ టెస్ట్ చేస్తాడు కదా, అది ప్రీ ప్రొడక్షన్ టెస్ట్.
So now after the software is developed,
టెస్ట్ లీడ్
ఆఫ్టర్ మన టెస్టర్స్ చేసేసాక వేరే వాళ్ళు ఇంటర్నల్ గా చేసేది ప్రీ ప్రొడక్షన్.
అదే మరి ఇంటర్నల్ గా
క్లయింట్ చేసేది
ఎవరు
ప్రొడక్షన్.
చేస్తారు?
using the
ఇంటర్నల్ గా ఎవరు చెప్తారు?
testing tools. So obviously this is my testing environment. Now, why am I using separate environment for development and separate environment for testing is my first question. Why am I using separate environments?
We are using different quality control అది అన్ని తీసుకుంటాం కదా మనం వేరే వేరే ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ వాళ్ళు జావా స్క్రిప్ట్ వాళ్ళ ఎన్వైరన్మెంట్
స్కిల్స్ బడ్జెట్ ఇవన్నీ వస్తాయేమో
different teams. Okay,
different
క్వాలిటీ కంట్రోల్ సెంటర్ ఇవన్నీ వాడతాం కదా
different budget
because it is separate systems and testers will be using their testing tools, correct? Maybe different budget, no nickel.
Different.
Testers are supposed to check defect-free software. That's okay, Anandita. They're also in the development environment. They can do that. Because two environments are different. Different tools to test, correct, Savita? Different tools, correct, Sujanya? So why am I using two separate environments for development as well as the testing? So if you just try to go ahead and understand this concept here, what we are trying to say here is that there is a separate development environment and there is a separate testers environment. So what are developers doing? They are doing the coding. What are the testers doing? They are doing the testing. And what are the developers giving to the testers? They are giving us a build. And we are testing that build. In these three lines, is there any doubt? In these three lines, is there any doubt?
No.
Okay, great. So there is no doubt in these three lines. What is build? I just explained, Avani. I just explained what is a build here. You were not there, Avani, when I explained? Did you join late? It means that the developers are writing code and they will package it in a single file which is known as a .exe. Okay, so this is basically, if you don't understand, Avani, maybe I can explain it once again a little later. So let's just try to see what's happening, and then if you don't understand anything, we can take it later. So here, why am I using separate environments for the development and the testing? So now, let's say in the same environment as the developer. So this is where the developer is doing the coding, and this is where the tester is also doing the testing. So right now, tester found a bug. What was the bug? Let's say the image. This is the login screen. This is the username and this is the password. So let's say the user has found a bug. This is the login button. Now the login button was supposed to be here as per the requirement. But in the actual, this is where the login button was. So as per the requirement, this is where the login button should have been there. Okay. Now, the developers are also in this environment. They are doing the coding. And then the testers also in this environment are doing the testing. So if the developer is going to make any change, then and there, the tester will be able to see the change. So what's happening here is, when the developer is doing the coding, so the tester will report a bug and then the developer should fix that bug. That is how it works. This is how the developer will fix the bug. This is how it works. But what's happening right now is the tester is testing, and just a minute back he saw that the login button was here. Before he could log that bug, or if he logged that bug, then and there the developer went and fixed it. Because both of them are in the same environment, the changes will keep happening so frequently. So it's more like, before you go ahead and report, they're working on the same machines. The developer, every 5 minutes, he's changing something. he's compiling it. A new build is being generated after every half an hour. So the tester, the minute the tester starts testing that build, it is always a different build that he's getting. Because the developer is making the changes then and there. Does it make sense? But how does it happen in the real world? In the real world, this is the developer's environment. This is the tester's environment. So here, the developer will finish their work. Finish their work means whatever development they are doing, they will finish their development. So let's say they take 3 days to finish their work. Then they will give the build to the tester after 3 days. And then this build will be with the testers, let's say for the next 2 days to test. So the same build the tester is testing on for the 2 days. So basically this is one build that the tester is testing on. So he will report all the bugs that he's found on that particular build. So here, once the developer is done with the coding, if he keeps changing the builds after every half an hour in his environment, does that affect the tester? No, it does not affect the tester because tester is on a separate system. But if the tester was here in the development environment, then the developer kept changing the build. Does it make sense to everybody?
Changes the builder.
Refresh out.
Then tester will know.
Does it make sense to everybody?
Yeah,
screen good. Screen refresh అవుతుంది
మేము కంప్యూటర్